Good evening, dear colleagues. As always, it's Sunday, and this is the Forex Times. I'm Dan Strelkov, and today, as always, we will look at the probable movement of three trading instruments, the euro, gold, and the Australian dollar. Dear colleagues, as always, I invite you to the Forex Times community. Don't miss new forecasts, trading signals, and other interesting things in the Forex Times community. Come over, you won't be disappointed. The cost is simply laughable. Well, let's get started. We begin with the euro dollar. Dear colleagues, let's immediately focus on the probable global construction of this trading instrument. Namely, we can clearly see an impulse. Let's call this impulse wave A. You know, I don't really like saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 simply because until I can see 4 and 5, I'm not inclined to say that we have a developing global classical impulse. So I see wave A, and secondly, a correction in the form of a flat wave A, and a probable triangle A, B, C, D, E in the wave B of senior order, and the probable development of this triangle. Apologies. The probable development of the triangle is, of course, growth. So we remember this global picture, and we are now going to think and align ourselves with it. All right, so here we have been developing over the last few weeks. And I immediately have to say that the data from the US, which came out on Friday evening, namely the number of new jobs created in the non-agricultural sector, which stood at 185,000, showed a sharp increase to 272,000. This is quite a lot. Naturally, you saw how the US currency grew, how the US dollar reacted to this news. And in principle, it broke the structure in some trading instruments, namely gold. However, it didn't disrupt anything in the euro. As expected, we have an initial expanded diagonal triangle in wave A, then a correction in wave B, then an impulsive movement in wave C, all this in wave A of higher order. I believe you may now ask, why not ABCW? Well, because, dear colleagues, wave W consists of ABC zigzags, and at this moment we start with the movement from the impulse of the initial expanding diagonal and end with the impulse in wave C. Next, we most likely see an impulse wave C, and the impulse wave C most likely consists of a classic 5-wave impulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After that, we will make a decision. But for Purchase Plus, dear colleagues, professionals hinted us by showing $206 million in option contracts in the way that they expect the price to be about here. The pros of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and what's most interesting is if we stretch Fibonacci grid on the impulse, some will ask, why not here? Dear colleagues, the first wave was our first wave. Then a correction followed in the form of a flat wave B. You need to stretch the Fibonacci grid by the wave, not by the minimum and maximum prices that you see on the market. We need to know where 50% and 61.8% will be exactly from this wave on the Fibonacci grid. So I stretched it in that way. We see that $206 million in option contracts are located maximally close to the level of 50% on Fibonacci, from which I can conclude that we will most likely continue the downtrend, after which we will get an impulse correction and will make a decision to enter the market from the range 50% to 61.8% on Fibonacci, or deferred orders from local maximums. And what's most interesting for you and us is that we have target levels. Here they are, clusters of option contracts, call at 210 million, 209, 21, 33, and 247, 7/5 or $83 million. Plus, throughout the option week, we had a very strong range, namely the upper edge of the market makers range and the hedron of options with their premiums. So, dear colleagues, the structure for the upcoming trading week looks approximately like this. The euro, in principle, is a prospective trading instrument. Gold. Here, indeed, a big problem occurred, simply for the reason that the data from the United States significantly dropped the price of gold. And what's most interesting is that I still assumed that after a correction, we could consider buying, but going down with renewing minimums on the impulse slightly breaks all the structure. So we need to ask ourselves, won't this be 1D, 3, 4, 5, and just a fall into the abyss? For this, we must look at this wave, the beginning of the impulse movement, on a smaller time frame to understand whether there is an impulse here. Dear colleagues, it's enough to just look here to understand that there is no impulsiveness here. Though note that the movement starts with a zigzag, most likely wave A, then a correction in the form of a plane wave B, and the movement towards wave C. So it began with a zigzag wave A, then B, and moving on C with flatness. This means that we have not wave A at the bottom, but wave W. Hence, X will be next, and again, ABC should be ABC. Now we will look at what most likely completes this movement. Therefore, we have this ABC movement here, most likely W, because once again, I emphasize that it started with a zigzag and ended with an impulse. But the beginning was a zigzag, then a connection in the form of floating wave X, and now ABC. We still miss quite a big drop, as you can see. So those who bought will probably have to be disappointed now, but for the future, this is a reformation formation, and therefore we expect growth to continue. And in general, this entire correctional formation will be called a flat, as we started with an initial diagonal triangle. I counted everything here. All parameters correspond to the initial diagonal triangle. This is our wave B, and this is a large wave C of senior order. Therefore, at the moment, I don't recommend buying gold to anyone who wants to. To those who want to sell, I also don't recommend, especially for the simple reason that the accumulation of option contracts for the week and for the months looks much more attractive, namely the accumulation of contracts P, which professionals in Chicago mainly hedge their sales deals with. The accumulation of option contracts T is rather small and is located at limited levels. So in this way, I imagine the development of this trading instrument for the upcoming trading week. Maybe within 2 weeks, maybe we will see a correction, a decrease, and then in a week we will see growth. We will be observing the situation that will occur, but it is not recommended to buy or sell at the moment. The only thing that can potentially be done is, in case of an obvious impulse and correction, you might decide to enter the market to buy, but to buy only with deferred orders, because, as I emphasize again, the number of new jobs outside the agricultural sector in the US has grown significantly, and wages in the US have also grown. This suggests that inflation is not even planning to decrease. So we will monitor further macroeconomic news from America. The Australian dollar is a very promising trading instrument for the upcoming trading week, since we are observing an initial diagonal triangle here. You might think it's crooked and ugly, but I've counted, and all the principles of the initial diagonal triangle work. So this is an impulse wave A, and then we go into a correction, and now we go into a 3-wave correction. Excuse me, wave B, of course, and a further upward growth is highly promising. Moreover, dear colleagues, to see where this growth might begin, I will draw Fibonacci on the impulse to determine 38%, Fibonacci 50, and 61.8, as well as expanded with 3-point Fibonacci on the likely correction. I determined that this level and this level are the most promising for reversal. Therefore, the range 65 and 65, 065 and 0658 are more than likely suitable for a good price reversal. And now we will also look at the target level, and we will look at the target level with you by monthly option contracts. The accumulation of option contracts is more than $100.40, exactly 147, yes, $147 million. Pay attention that when the trading instrument falls after the expiration of monthly option contracts, professionals rewrote their expectations upwards. So growth is expected for this trading instrument, and the target level of 0682 is a very promising trading instrument. Dear colleagues, it's much more promising than the euro and gold for the upcoming week, maybe 2 weeks as well. Dear colleagues, I would like to underline that there are also 3 very good potential trading instruments in this list. but I will not tell you about them here. Therefore, please come to the VIP community of Forex Times, and you will see all the forecasts, see the trading signals. You can ask your questions. Do come. You'll always be welcome. As for today, thank you everyone. Goodbye.